So in terms of Section 1 advice, of course, if this was months before the exam, I would suggest that you, on a regular basis, do a lot of reading. Read especially things like The Economist, which has many great articles with excellent English and different opinions, and read novels and poems. Read philosophy. A.C. Grayling, I'm sure you've heard of it because a lot of GAMSAT students, perhaps more GAMSAT students, buy this book every year than students from any other subject. And he wrote the book, The Meaning of Things. So it's pop philosophy, and it's short essays on many of the topics that comes up in the Section 2 essay. But the point is that you read from many sources, get different opinions, improve your English skills, of course. And in terms of improving your English skills, I'm saying that for all people, even if English is your first language. However, if English is not your first language, then you should seriously consider doing a little course on the side with credit or without credit. You can do a little, literature or whatever kind of course, or poetry, so that you go through different interpretations and whatever without credit, perfectly fine, or just go online and find different websites, or go to YouTube or whatever, and you will find different opinions. But the point is to be aggressive to improve, because it's an important part of the exam. And you may also consider getting an app, some speed reading apps, if you find that reading is a problem, your pace of reading is a problem, and comprehension, because it's not about speed, it's very much about a combination of speed and comprehension. So there's many really good apps that you can get to improve that, or you can go to some websites online. But at this point, between now and exam day, really the focus, the priority must be practicing. And the best practice that you can get for Section 1 is going to be using ACER's booklets. And you must not give in to temptation and start using ACER booklets by doing a few questions today and a few questions tomorrow. That's not an effective use of those materials. The ideal way to use the Section 1 section in the 4 ACER booklets that are available now is to use timed practice. You know you have 1.3 minutes per question, and you want to get into the habit of seeing what that really means and what that feels like. So it also means that every half an hour you should be checking the clock and to ensure that you've completed 23 questions. Now you might have your own system, but if you don't have a system, then at least every half an hour, 23 questions, and if not, you're going to you're going to start guessing on the passages where there are long stimulus material, so that you can go into material that you have a chance to optimize your score with. So every half an hour, 23 questions for Section 1. In Section 3, you have 1.5 minutes per question, so every half an hour, 20 questions in Section 3. So so that's the 4 ACER booklets. You definitely time practice. If you are part of the Gold Standard programs, then you're probably aware of some of the materials that we have. There's 20 mini tests online. So there's 20 mini tests online. It's in GAMSAT University, or part of the complete course. And there's a lot of material in the new Gold Standard GAMSAT textbook. And there's the 5 online practice tests. So there are 5 full-length online practice tests. And they're very challenging, and they all come with solutions. And if you're used up these types of materials, of course, there's Des O'Neill, who has effective Section 1 passages, the practice materials. I feel so strange giving this talk today because, everybody's heard of, I think everybody's heard of Des O'Neill, and I just went to his website today, and it's closed down. You know, it's so strange. He's been around since the 1990s, and it seems that he's retired. So, but anyway, I'm sure you can find a way to get some material. Okay, and then there's exam crackers. Some people use exam crackers. It's for the MCAT, actually. They use it because it's cheap and there's a lot of practice in it. So, because you can usually get it quite relatively inexpensive. You just, you know, practice is practice. And so if you're out of GAMSAT practice, then, you know, if it's easy to access, then all the more power to you. But understand that exam crackers, it's not the same as the GAMSAT. They don't have drama or poetry. They don't have cartoons. I mean, it's just not the same. But you know, it's practice. Okay. Now, when you're sitting the exam, you're going to have 10 minutes reading time. So you have 10 minutes reading time for section 1 and 10 minutes reading time for section 3, 5 minutes reading time for section 2. In your section 1 reading time, or in any of your reading time, you're not allowed to write on your test booklet. So you're not allowed to write on the test booklet, but of course you will be assessing the content. So don't try to waste your time just thinking, oh, I'm just gonna, I want to see everything and whatever. And then some students try to see everything, and then they stop, close the booklet, and wait for the test to start. It's just not an effective use of your time. You've got the 10 minutes. Go through the exam. Identify what you're going to attack first. So if you're best at poetry or drama, or if whatever it is that you have learned through practice, you assess that and you attack it right away. That's the best way that you can begin the test. Now there are some students who, because you're not allowed marking your booklet, so I am not advising you at all to mark your booklet, but there are some students who fold the edge of a page where they want to start, or they use their thumbnail to mark the paper in some way so that they can get back to that page quickly when the exam starts. The key thing is, of course, once the exam starts and you start attacking the questions that you are most familiar with first, the key thing is that you definitely fill in your exam paper as you're going along. Don't think that I'm going to have time at the end to fill in my exam paper. I've heard terrible stories that students have had that they handed in their exam paper seconds, minutes after they should have. Seconds or minutes. And later received a letter confirming that their exam was canceled. So because of irregularities. So you don't want to be anywhere near that. So you fill in as you go along, you triple check that every time you fill in a number, it is the correct number, and you're not filling in the wrong column or wrong anything. You triple check that because you're going to be going back and then going through the exam in a chronological way, and then and because of that, you want to make sure that you don't make any mistakes filling in the thing. Now, this whole issue about optimize versus completing. Chances are you are not going to complete the exam. You're not going to complete section 1 or section 3. Chances are. You might. There are some of you that super fast, no problem. But I want you to understand one important point. There are many students who ace the exam, outright ace the exam, who never finish it. So that means there's like 10 questions that they left on the table. They just never even saw those 10 questions, and yet they were able to ace the exam. So this is examanship. The key idea here is that you need to optimize your score, not finish every question. I know you've been trained in uni. I need to finish every question. Forget it. Your objective is to optimize your score, to give your best effort with the content that you know. You never spend 5 minutes on a question. Never. I mean, 2 minutes, alarms have to be going off in your head because the value of the question is just not worth it that you can't even get to see what's next. So assess the exam, optimize your score. That is the most important thing. I just want to mention about focus and imagery. There are some times during the exam that you might lose focus. And sometimes you might be tired. And if you are tired, you might need to take a couple of minutes and put your head on the table or relax or whatever. You know, some people need to do a little bit of yoga or something because they get a bit too uptight on exam day. And they need to find ways to breathe and to relax during the exam. Now, if you are alert and you are going through the exam, but sometimes you're losing some focus, there's one thing that you can do just before reading any passage, and that is consider that after you read the passage, you're going to have to summarize the content for a younger brother, sister, sibling, niece, nephew, I don't know, grandchild, whatever. So let's just imagine that you need to summarize the content for someone that you can imagine in your mind. Just spend 2 seconds thinking about that, and then boom, start reading. The reason this imagery can be helpful to you is because a lot of ACER's questions, they're not the typical things about what date was in line 3. It's not going to be a question like that. It's a lot of questions about getting the impression or the sense or the feeling of what the author meant or would mean or would consider in a different situation. So because it's about the sense, it's very important for you to be able to, get to see the forest from the trees. That you're not trying to examine every detail, but you're trying to get an overall view so that you can answer questions better using that gut feeling. Because that gut feeling is very important. I mean, it's been proven scientifically that on average, it works when it is educated. That means your gut feeling when you don't know anything about the issue is just a random feeling. But a gut feeling in which you're actually paying attention, you're focused, you're trying to get a sense of the material, and then you have a gut feeling that tends to be correct. At least that's what the research shows. So I think you should consider having some sort of imagery like that. Another imagery would be that you have the sense that you need to do a class presentation on it as soon as you finish. And so that's another thing to consider. Next, of course, annotate. Annotate like crazy. Circle, underline, put asterisks. The most depressing thing is if you just read a full page and then you're starting to look at the questions and you didn't annotate at all, and now you've got to go back into that to try to find some information or get an impression of something. Very difficult. But if you annotate a lot, it helps to serve like guideposts in the passage for your eyes to be able to focus and move around. Even if what you underlined doesn't end up being relevant, it's okay. It still helps to serve as a guidepost for your eyes as you're going through the content. And now, process of elimination. Now, I know you've heard of process of elimination a billion times. You can't believe how important it is with ACER's exams. ACER loves opposites. They love to get you to start thinking a certain way and then ask you about the reverse and then possibly the reverse of the reverse. And then see if you can maintain all that information in your head. So sometimes you'll be reading answers thinking that you're looking for the right answer, but you're actually looking for the wrong answer, which ends up being the right answer. So how do you get into a situation that you don't reverse things in your head and then end up choosing the wrong letter just because of a mental error? You do that because of process of elimination. It means that not all questions are going to be like this, but a significant number of questions on the exam, you'll need to put X's next to the letter or check marks next to it. And then when you have 3 check marks, then you know the correct answer is the other thing. And if you have 3 X's, then you know the correct answer is the other thing. So process of elimination really helps when you have these reverse thinking questions. Last issues, some people wonder, so what's better to do for section 1? Should you read the questions first and then the passage, or should you do the passage first and then the questions? And the truth is there are students who have aced section 1 using one or the other. So the important thing is that you need to determine what is most effective for you. So the best thing that you can do is you take ACER's practice materials. For example, you've got the red booklet and the blue booklet. They're both half-length tests. Then ACER has practices 1 and 2, and those are full-length. But you take the half-length test, and then you do one test where you're doing the passage and the questions, and so you're doing it in the traditional approach. And then in the next one, you do the questions, then the passage, and then you see how you score. Is the score different? Is it more effective? Did it feel easier? So you're able to make that decision that way. So, but when you do the questions first, just to clarify, you don't read the whole question and all the answers. You just look at the question stem, and then you glance at the answer. So just you have a sense of it. And then you're going to develop your own technique to see if you go hunting in the passage first, or you get a sense of all the questions, and then you go to the passage, and then you answer the questions in turn. But normally, there's going to be questions where you need a sense of the passage, so sooner or later you need to go through that. Now, having said all of that, if you're running out of time, whether it's section 1 or section 3, you go straight to the questions. And then you see whether or not you're able to, reason something, or if it points to a certain particular area in the passage, so that you can just go to that and see if you can get a sense of where they're going with that question. And finally, when all else fails, of course you guess. And no, there is no one letter better than any other letter. Yes, I know people will say C, or some people will say B, but statistically, ACER uses item response theory. It's complicated, and it's able to assess the chances that you're guessing on questions, the chances that you really worked it out. When questions are extremely difficult and you worked it out, you get some extra marks as compared to another question where you simply were guessing. So consider all of that. When ACER goes through all those details, checking out the various questions in that manner, then the idea that one letter is going to give you an advantage over another is ridiculous. And in fact, yes, it's true that at a university exam level, university professors tend to choose perhaps C a little bit more than the other letters, just a little bit more, because they don't have any statisticians evaluating their exams. But ACER has a committee of statisticians evaluating their exams, and that's why there's no particular thing. But at least guess, put any guess you want, whatever your lucky guesses might be. Okay, well, that is it for today. I hope you wish you the best of luck with your exam, and I hope you can after your exam you can say hi on Facebook, or after you get your score, and just let us know how things have been going. We're always happy to find out how things are. And if you happen to be at the University of Queensland, there's a pre-med society at the University of Queensland. I'll be giving a talk to them in a couple of days, and so I'm sure they'll make the relevant announcements. So have a great evening or morning if you're in Europe, and good luck with your studies.